Hello everybody. So I just happened to come across a video tonight. So it's currently 11:36 p.m. for me. I have just started a live stream because I figured, hey, this is like the fastest way to get out a Goxlr tutorial. So a lot of you, I wouldn't say a lot, but quite a few people saw my last Goxlr tutorial. And there were some very key problems with that because one, I boosted way too much in the bass. It was way too much, and I should not have done that. And so I'm kind of coming back to like, hey, maybe I should see if I can fix that. I'm trying to find my tutorial, but I'm not seeing it here. I wonder where it went. There it is. Okay. Hello. So if we watch this here, okay, you hear my mic now. By the way, I do have my noise gate disabled, just so there is no noise gate interfering with the audio quality of the mic. So here, let's take a listen. Hello, everybody. So I recently was just browsing YouTube and I had stumbled across some videos of people with SM7Bs and Goxlrs and stuff. And one of the videos I had seen was Jay's 2 cents video. And I just had the idea, hey, what if I make it? Okay, so you can kind of tell the version that I have now gives significantly more clarity. Okay, so that is something that I really wanted to look for because in this tutorial or like a kind of a guide on an SM7B and it goes one, you can tell that there's a lot of bass, and so if you play this through a speaker or a sound system that has a subwoofer, it is way too loud. And because one of the things that I had done, if we pull up this, is, let me save that really quick, is I believe, yeah, I had done this. I had done something similar to this. Now you see how, listen how kind of terrible the high end sounds. Okay, so here, let me expand this. So that's what I did I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see that. But I had boosted all this. Don't do that. That is not how you get the radio broadcast sound you want. So we go back to mic 2, which is just my main profile. So I have main mic 2, and then main mic is slightly less compressed, so it's not as even of a sound. So as you can tell, main mic, if I get off the microphone a little bit more, it does get quieter. With main mic 2, I am significantly louder. So as a whole, I'm usually a little bit more balanced. Here is the one thing about that though. There is one of the reasons maybe why you're getting a lot of sibilance when you're using a lot of compression. Okay, so if I just compress it, so like it's super compressed, right? You can hear a lot of background noise. Hear how that's super audible? That's not good. So now let's go back to this. So here's something very key. The higher, sorry, my mouth. Let me take a drink of water really quick before I continue this. 1 second. Okay. So I have my ratio turned up 8:1. Now the reason for that is if you happen to bring this into OBS Studio or you have some sort of audio monitoring software that you can bring this stream up into, you'll realize that I'm peaking anywhere from about -20 to -10. That's about where you want to be. I would say above -15 to maybe, the max would be like -5 to -15. That's about the max you would want to go, because you go any higher than that, you can introduce other sounds that are not good. So my compressor, I do have it more heavily compressed, but when I do get on top of the microphone and I really get that nice broadcast sound, you hear that? Kind of how it accentuates the bass. I don't always want to do that because then I'm just going to be stuck behind the microphone like this. Plus, kind of hear that sound. That's from boosting the high end, and that's not actually any popping. That's just the sound of my lips parting. So I would have it off axis. Now it does have that sound a little bit, but if I'm saying in a sentence, it usually is not as bad. So there are things here and there that you'll have to tune to your voice. And this is just kind of a good baseline. So my noise gate, that is something that you really can't, you can't just put a baseline. Oh, here's the other thing before I go any farther. This is how much gain I have. And I almost always sit like back here. That's like a whole hand width away, which for this mic, you don't really want to do if you want the best sound. But I have it at 48. Now you see where I'm peaking is like in the low area. Now it says that's really low, but there's a big problem. If you want to boost it, if you want to turn up the volume afterwards, because if you turn up the initial gain, so like, you know, when a lot of people say, oh yeah, the SM7B requires 60 decibels of gain. Well, I'm going to turn down this makeup gain. Oops. And turn this all the way up to 60. Now, as you can see, if I turn the threshold all the way up, now you can see I'm peaking. If you bring this in audio editing software, here, actually, you know what I can do? I can bring that right there like that. That'll be super useful. So I'm peaking up into the red and like around -10-ish. Now it sounds okay. It sounds fine. But here's the big problem with that. If you get loud, it peaks really bad. And even if you bring the threshold down to where it's not peaking, it still peaks. You hear that? It still peaks. The compressor, for some reason, doesn't always do what it's designed to do. Why? I'm not sure. I'm not like a fully audio expert, but this is just what I know from the software. Okay. That should be better now. So, no, there is no extra noise introduced. I've looked at that and tried to kind of measure it in my little levels over there. I keep trying to point at the screen, but there's nothing I can do. But it does not make a difference in hiss. That background hiss is room noise, is just sound from the microphone. That's just what that is. And I love having an open mic, but I have a lot of like breathing issues, like with my nose. So you can notice how that's very audible and would be very distracting in game. And I cannot stand the sound of that, especially when I'm like really into a game, not to like annoy anyone, but when I'm really into a game, it can make a lot of noise. I'm saying it, but my nose makes a lot of noise, or breathing or anything like that can make noise. So that is the beauty of a noise gate. However, you know, if you want to talk quiet, or if you want to get off your microphone a little bit, you don't have to worry about cutting in and out. That's the downside of a noise gate. Now, there are other plugins that you can't really use with the Goxlr that sort of eliminate that, like Reaper plugins allows you to have like a pre-open. That's what I actually used on my other microphone before I got the Goxlr and stuff. And it works great. Like, it makes it sound way more natural because it actually opens. It delays your audio and opens I think I had it set to 100 milliseconds before technically my audio actually went through the noise gate. So it worked really well. Because if you notice, maybe you have your noise gate too high. When you say an S or so, it kind of cuts immediately into the S. Now you can fix some of that with the attack. So 10 milliseconds is the lowest that you can go. You can go higher. That will help. but it just takes a little bit longer to open, which in some cases might be worse. So like if you go, bro, and you want that, immediate stuff in there, it can actually take a second. So, let's, you know what I'm going to do? There we go. There, now you can see me a little better. Okay. So the attack is something that normally I just leave at 10. It should be fine. The release, however, does make a difference. So if I bring this back up to where it was, you can hear no more background noise. So what the release does, it's at 900 milliseconds. 900. Hear how that it takes a little bit for that hiss to go away? What that is good for is if you have a lot of inconsistencies in your voice. So say you get really loud and then you get really quiet, or just stuff like that. The longer you have the release set to, the longer it takes to for the noise gate to engage. Now, say we do the opposite and bring it down to like 50 hertz. Now you see how, or 60 hertz. So you see how it kind of cuts in and out sometimes. That's because whenever it goes below negative 53 hertz, 60 milliseconds, it stops, and it makes your voice sound weird. So I would recommend about 250. That seems to be a good amount. If you need more, go above. If you don't like it and maybe need to cut quicker, and we'll take the risk of having it cut in and out, go lower. But I think 250 is a good amount. I'm going to turn it off now. Now the attenuation is something that it really depends on the way you want your mic to sound. So if I enable it again here, there we go. Bring it down to 10%. So what that means is 10% of anything below negative 53 hertz, it gets reduced, or it gets reduced 10% of anything below negative 53 decibels, not hertz, I'm sorry. So you can notice how you can still hear my breathing. It's because it's not closing all the way. It's only cutting off 10% of the volume. Bring it up to 50, you can barely hear anything. So but here I just cut in. So the attenuation can give it a little bit more of a natural sound. If you just want it to reduce the background noise and not completely cut it out, I usually set it to 100 anyways, just so that it doesn't pick up any clicks. Plus, I set it low enough to where I don't really need it to, like, it doesn't cut off my voice that often. So I'm going to disable it now. Ugh. So, that's kind of the gate. That's really the first thing you want to set up. Because anything after that does not affect the gate. So as far as I know, it works in succession. So it goes gain, then to gate, then to equalizer, then to compressor, then to de-esser. That's the, what would that be? The mic chain? I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that only has to do with the equipment, but I believe that has to do with the EQ and compression. So with the equalizer, this is very important. Okay. So if we go to, let's see, what was it, temp? And we set this to what it was. Okay. So I think that needs to be at, hold on one second. It was 16 and 85. Okay. $85. Okay. So now this is the raw sound of the mic, which I don't know if any of you have seen the podcastage review of this, but I don't know why, but on his voice, it actually sounds like really nice. But if I, use the sampler and go, does this sound good to me? Does this sound good to me? In my ears, it doesn't really give me the sound that I want. and it doesn't have a whole lot of high end. I mean, it's fairly natural. That's not really how my voice sounds in real life, according to other people, but that's just the stock sound of the mic. So, I actually had stumbled across someone else. Let me go back to the other one here. There we go. This is the other one now. Big difference, huh? Sounds way better in my ears. Maybe doesn't sound good to some other people, but I think this is a pretty good baseline. Also, the other thing with the gate is if you have like a sharp start to a sentence because the compressor hasn't kicked in yet, if you make the attack longer, it'll help get rid of that while the gate is closed. So if we go to, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Okay. This is the Jolly Legend. This is that's him. He's got a great voice, like amazing voice. This is what he sounds like.
A 3 decibel boost at 4 kHz, 6 decibel boost at 8 kHz, and then 9 decibels a boost at 16 kHz. Because that just really brings...
Okay, so that's this is his EQ and compression, and I mimicked that on my voice, okay? Now it says best Goxlr settings for the Shure SM7B. There really is no best settings. There's kind of a good baseline, but there really is no best settings because everyone's voice is different. So I made a rendition of the same exact settings, sounds like this on my voice. This is what it sounds like. Now, if I get rid of the gate, this is what it sounds like on my voice. I think if I listen back to it in my ears, doesn't sound good. If I listen back to it in my ears, doesn't sound good. It doesn't at all. So that's why you can't just apply that to everyone. And the compression, yeah, I mean, I would agree with him. The compression is probably pretty good. That's a good start. I mean, mine is slightly less, but this EQ, I have a big issue. The other thing, he doesn't have a de-esser. You hear how shrill my S's are? I'm pretty sibilant in my speaking. Sounds awful. I'm going to get off that. In comparison to this. So the other thing is to get rid of that kind of plosive sound, get this out in front of you so it doesn't have that. It has you get rid of the plosives, because if you don't put the bigger screen on here, which I don't really like the look of it personally. Now, if you're doing a podcast and you don't need to be seen, sure, go ahead. It does help with plosives a lot. But with this, I like the look of this better. So I turn it sideways so I don't blow into it. That little bit of like sound you hear is actually just the sound that my lips make. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's crickets in Puff's cage, which is my bearded dragon. They're making the cricket sound. That's kind of funny. So, let me mute this. Okay. Sorry about that. So, this is my version of the EQ, and I enabled fine tune. I find that the normal stuff does not give you enough, fine tune. I mean, that's essentially what that is, but it doesn't give you enough options, okay? Now, what the audio community says is the mids is like 1 kilohertz, like anywhere from like 800 kilohertz or 800 hertz to like maybe like 500 kilohertz, somewhere around in there. Don't take what I'm saying for granted. I'm not super knowledgeable about that, but I do know a pretty decent amount. So, with the bass, depending on your voice, my voice is fairly low. For his voice, his version of the EQ sounds fine. Now, he is a voice actor and has just a naturally deep, very nice voice. I found that his S's, because he did not use a de-esser, were very shrill and actually was graining on the ears. I didn't like it at all. Now, the rest of it sounds great. He has a great voice. My voice, not so much without a good EQ. Now, there's kind of different ways of doing an EQ. You can do it to sound very processed and sound very good, depending on your preferences. Oh, you know what? I'm stupid. I never enabled my face. I'm looking at my face up here and did not even realize it was down there. Anyways, what I was saying before is the crickets back in here are chirping right now. I am so sorry. I forgot to put my face in there. So you can make it sound more processed, give it kind of that radio sound, or you can EQ it for a natural sound. Now, for my voice, this is an okay natural sound. It's not super natural, because my voice does not resonate as much in real life, but this is a good sound for me that does not give a bunch of mids, because my voice is very mid heavy and because my breathing problem is very nasally. So I try and get rid of that for clarity, because if you want your voice to come through your game audio or whatever else you're doing, you need clarity. So I boost lower. So instead of boosting, 120 or 150, like here, you hear how you can also hear more background noise from that, but you just kind of hear how it's that higher sound that doesn't sound as clear versus putting it back down here makes it sound more clear. Okay, so I don't boost, at 31. I would just leave that at 0. Mainly just because you don't want to cut it off too much or it can impact the sound of your voice, but just leaving it at 0 is fine. Now, if you really have a lot of low rumble, then you're going to want to cut some of that. But if you're, just you have a standard room and not a whole lot of extra noise, there obviously a fan or something's fine, but anything else the noise gate's going to take care of. Really low stuff, then maybe cut that. But the other thing is your noise gate's going to handle that, so rely more on that. Okay, so 60 hertz is kind of your sub bass. So that's the lower end. That's what gives it depth. That's what gives a male voice, I would say, kind of a lower male voice, a deep sound. So if your voice is low, and I wouldn't say resonate, but that's where a lot of your speaking comes from, is you're lowering your, your larynx, I think it is. And that's just how you speak. I would recommend boosting 60 and 90. 60 a little bit more than 90, because 90 can get a little bit higher, like I said, but your voice will normally sit around 90 hertz, 90 hertz and below. So that's for me. Don't take that as the best settings. That's just for me. I would say start with this and start fine tuning. Now, I cut immediately after 90 hertz at 150 hertz, cut it, because as you just heard, that adds a lot of extra stuff that I don't want to deal with. It's not really the mids. It's like low mids, and does not sound good. It kind of gives me a nasally sound and is bad. It sounds terrible. The 0.5 kilohertz also cut. Remember, you kind of want to give it a smiley face if you really want to kind of get that more processed radio sound. And you would want to do that less if you want a more natural sound in theory. So then 0.5 kilohertz, and then starting to go up at 1.2 and 2. I believe these 3 stay the same. Now up at 8, 10, and 16. Normally it's like 4, 8, and 16. I turn all those up because when this is at 4, this is at 8, this is what it sounds like. Now you hear how it almost sounds like a radio, like a bad radio, like a radio on here, instead of this. This gives a higher, crispier sound because you don't want that like lower high airy sound, if you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of hard to explain. You want the higher end because your S's, you're like that low S sound like I have. It's really hard to get rid of it, but you can boost the higher part of it, which that's what gives it more clarity. That's what makes it sound nicer and not so just like you're spitting almost. It's kind of a gross sound if you don't. Okay, so that's what I do for the equalizer. The compressor, this is my current compression settings. I would not say that I'm a super loud talker. I'm usually pretty quiet in comparison to a lot of people that yell. Now this will handle, and the gain will handle pretty much as loud as you would probably ever get. Now, if you're someone that literally like screams into the microphone, you want to just lower your gain because you're kind of a crazy person and just like screams as loud as you can, then yeah, lower your gain, but also probably shouldn't do that. So, I am public, right? Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure. Okay. So, compression 27, 8:1, 2 milliseconds, 85 milliseconds release, because with boosting the higher and having more compression, your S's come through a little more, and the release, the reason that is because your vowels, that's what gets more compressed, because that's the louder part. Your S's do not get as compressed. So when you're talking, if it's not compressed, okay, it's just like an audio level of here's your and then okay. Now when it's compressed, it'll be like if your release is turned all the way down, because it's immediate when the compression stops. So if you're really boosting the makeup gain, your S's are going to just cut through and be super loud. So just like this, you see how the S's become way more clear, and like they just cut through so much. That's a little bit distracting. I put it up to 85. If you want more, turn it down from there. If you want less, turn it up and see how the S's kind of disappear. Like they're still there, but you lose kind of the higher part of the S's. So I put it at 85 because here's the common misconception with sibilants, okay? A lot of people are like, oh, well, I have a very sibilant voice. That means I need to get rid of it. No, you don't want to get rid of it. You want to clear it up, because no sibilance equals no clarity. You don't get any articulation in your voice. You don't want that. The de-esser I have at 25. Like I said, I'm very sibilant. But put that to whatever you want. Don't turn it up too much. Don't overdo it, because then you lose that articulation. So, yeah. The reason the ratio is 8:1, not anything lower, is because I want a hard, like, cutoff. I usually want it, like, fairly natural sounding, but I do want it to almost always be the same volume, no matter if I'm loud or if I'm quiet or if I'm, like, really loud. That's not really loud, but people are sleeping. So the attack, leave it 2 milliseconds, because if you bring it down to the lower one, do you kind of hear that like that sound? It doesn't sound very good. If you're having that sound, guaranteed it's the attack. Don't do that. It just makes it like happen so fast that it kind of sounds like it's peaking almost, but like just, yeah, doesn't sound good. So, anyways, that is kind of my main settings for all of that. Now, with the low end, the high end, I would usually keep and then kind of adjust the de-esser for that. But the low end is very hard to do per voice. For a female, I would probably put this a little bit higher and not as high, just because usually they have a higher voice, and you don't want to be boosting super low because then it sounds weird. You do want to boost lower because you want to give them some kind of depth. You want to give them some kind of like bottom end, but not like this, because this is more for a male voice. Okay. Also, the other thing, mic profiles are super handy. If you don't want to mess up your current one, just create a new one and go with whatever you want to go with. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. And the other thing is, some people want to be off of their mic. Okay. Some people want to be like clear back here. This is a ways away. This is like too far away from your mic. Usually for me, I like to be about here, which is sometimes considered too far away as well. Usually you want to be pretty much like right here. That's what most audio professionals would say about the SM7B, is you want to be pretty much on top of the mic. And in that case, you really don't need to boost the lows so much. Now, if you want to get that radio broadcast sound with a lot of low end, but also some of the clarity, one, you would turn down the release because you're compressing so much. And also, you'd probably want to turn down the low end just because it's a lot of low end. But for me, I like to be off of it just a little bit. So I boost the low end a little bit more, turn down the release because the compressor is not working as hard. But here's the issue. If you have an SM7B, don't do this. Don't do it. Okay? It sounds terrible. Okay? Now, it may sound okay, but you notice how much of the room you can hear. How much room noise. And still, here's my audio levels. First of all, my refrigerator's going. You can probably hear that. But you see how I'm talking at a good level. Now, I am peaking okay, like just at the bottom of yellow. That's not where you want to be. You want to be at the top of yellow. Plus, if I speak quieter, I'm too quiet. Okay? It's just too quiet. Don't do that. The SM7B is designed to be a closer microphone. Okay? If you want to be farther away, either get a shotgun mic or get a condenser. Okay? Now, the condenser also not really designed for that, but is better at sensitivity. That's how someone like Markiplier is able to have his mic completely off of camera almost and still get a really good sound sometimes. Also, the other thing with making it far away, to actually get it, so here is like barely out of frame. Okay, you see that? That's about how much I have to boost it to actually get it back up where it's supposed to be. That's how much I have to boost it. And you notice how all the bass is gone pretty much, and also how there's more like resonance, there's more room frequencies. That's why. Don't do it. Okay, now it's back down to 16. Now the reason, like I said, that I have my compression a little bit more is just because, so like my main mic, that's the compression on here. but as I get a little quieter, it does get quieter. So I didn't really want that. I wanted a more compressed sound, so that's what I did. Now the main mic no noise gate is the same as main mic. This one, the less compressed one, and there's less background noise, but when I'm farther away, it does get less compressed and not as loud. Versus mic 2, that definitely is loud enough and will pretty much always be loud enough. No matter if I'm right here or if I'm right here, you're still able to hear me. Don't go over and completely go overkill with the compressor, because it doesn't need to be. You only need to compress as much as you need to. There's no point in setting it to 100. I used to do that. It doesn't sound good, because then you can get sounds like this where, yeah, you're really far away from the mic, but you hear how much room echo there is. Listen to that. And also like how much possibly how much of the refrigerator you can hear. It doesn't sound good. So yeah, don't do that. Okay, main mic 2. Not just here to tell you all the things you shouldn't do, but here is a good baseline. So gate, set that to whatever you need it to be set to. I usually set it to like 54 or 53, negative 54, negative 53. Release, attack, maybe just have those as baseline. Attenuation, do whatever you want with. This is the equalizer I would use for me. This is not for everyone, but for me. And this is the compression that I would use. I would say pretty much for a lot of people, because as long as you're right here, you're within like a width of your hand. I have a big hand, but like a width of your hand away, you're going to be just fine. Like, you're always going to be heard, and you're always going to be plenty loud, but you're also not going to be screaming and getting into the red. You may peek a little bit into the red here and there, but you're always in the middle of yellow. And if you're going to be recording, and usually what you do with recording is you have the audio levels here where they're at, okay? So you wouldn't upload with these audio levels. Sorry, I had to burp. That was wonderful. You wouldn't really upload with the levels here. You would want to push it up to where it's like hitting -2. And with this being so compressed and where it basically never goes above -10, you could boost this like 8 decibels. Put a limiter, and it is plenty loud pretty much the entire time. The reason you want to do that is just so it's plenty loud for everyone. No one has to turn up their headphones super loud. No one likes that. So yeah, that's just my tutorial. Hopefully it's pretty in-depth. I don't know what else to put in there. I would just say don't boost as high as like 125. I would not do that personally. It just gives too much like resonance almost, for at least my voice. So yeah, so that is my tutorial, and I can't think of anything else. And yeah, all right. Well, it looks like some people just finally came in, but yeah, go back and watch the early parts of this if you have a Goxlr and it is SM7B. Here's the other thing, okay? Here is a big thing about the SM7B. If you want to get that radio broadcast sound, get it up to your mouth. That's what you're supposed to do, okay? When people broadcast with this microphone on radio or on a podcast, they're usually like right here on the mic. Sometimes with the closed talk filter and not as much compression. And this is what it sounds like with this EQ and stuff. But this is more of a broadcast sound. For me, I still like that, but not as compressed, and to not be so close. Plus, I don't need to be here the entire time. I don't have to have the mic in my face so people can see me. That's a big thing. You want people to see you. You don't want to be like this. Who wants to see that? I don't. I want to see people's mouths so I can, kind of read their lips. I don't want to see this. Like, yeah, this may look cool. This, over on the side. It's out of the way. It's not in front of your mouth where it's blocking your face and stuff. Corner of your mouth so there's no plosives. Anyways, I'm almost getting angry because I see so many people that either use this mic like this far away, and it's like they have no idea how to use it. They have all this money to spend on this microphone, yet they can't pay someone to help them with it. So they have it clear down here, maybe not even pointed at them, and they're wondering, why am I getting such a crappy sound? Or maybe they just don't even care, which is probably the majority. That's why. It's not designed like that. It's not a shotgun mic, okay? So it's so infuriating to me that people spend hundreds of dollars on equipment. $400 microphone, possibly $120 arm, like a $400 or $500 interface, and yet it sounds like garbage. Now, if you think that this mic sounds like my version sounds like garbage, let me know in the comments below. I am perfectly open to that. Everyone is to their own opinions, but I feel like there are some things that pretty much everyone, well, I guess people that actually care about the way things sound would agree don't sound good. Or maybe there's also ones that everyone thinks sounds bad or sounds good. I mean, there are ones that don't sound good and some that do sound good. Anyways. Hello, Max. How are you doing? So yeah, I was just doing a quick little tangent on Goxlr stuff. So yeah. All right. I will be leaving you here and I will be going to bed. That's what I'm doing. I just happened to stumble across that video and it kind of made me bad. Your mic sounds better than mine, so I like it. Thank you. That is kind of the point. Like, you spend, I would say, close to $1,000, depending on if you get a cloud lifter, which you don't need with the Goxlr. Makes me so mad. All right, good night. You spend that much money plus $800 and that you don't know how to use it, or you can't pay someone to do it for you. It's so infuriating to me. I just don't understand it. And I'm not trying to call anyone out. It's just very frustrating to me. I go on Twitch sometimes and see other people. There's one guy, I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to out him, makes this mic sound like a headset microphone. It's not on purpose. He does it, and I don't know what he has it hooked up to, but he has it EQ'd in a way to where it literally sounds like a crappy, like, Logitech headset microphone. It sounds awful. There's no bass. There's nothing. It's just like treble. That's it. And like crunchy audio is so... Anyways, okay. I will be going to bed, and I will be seeing all of you. What you got to say about headphone mics? Okay, there's nothing bad about a headphone mic other than that in comparison to, higher end audio, it doesn't sound as good. It has nothing against headset mics. I mean, I would say there are some headset mics that are better than others. But my issue is when you spend hundreds of dollars on something like this and it sounds like a headset mic that you didn't spend hundreds of dollars on the mic. That's just my issue. Anyways. So yeah. Not trying to offend anybody. Like, this is just a rant that I decided to do because I was bored and saw a video. So I have nothing against headset mics. They're very convenient. I have a headset mic that I sometimes use on my wireless headphones. I mean, it sounds okay. It works. I don't have to be right here. I can walk around my entire room or almost my entire house and talk with people. That's really cool. So, anyways. All right. Okay. Well, I will be actually leaving, and I will see you later. I don't know when, because I don't know when I'll be streaming next. Hopefully sometime soon, but we will see. All right, I'm gonna go play COD. Have a good night. Okay, you have a good time playing, and possibly whenever you sleep. Good night. All right, bye y'all.